29th, 2025 is hereby called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Keith Larson.
Here.
Alderman Dan Barrero. Alderman Edward Bugg.
Here.
Vice Chair Carl Franco.
Here.
And Chairman Masiacos is present.
Clerk, can you please read the approval of the minutes?
Item 25-0445, approval of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting held on May 15, 2025.
Is there any questions or comments on this item?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Alderman Carl Franco, second by Alderman Keith Larson. Is all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Well, can I vote on it since I wasn't here?
Yes.
All right, 4-0. Done deal. Okay. Public comment, clerk. Do we have any members of the public wishing to offer public comment this afternoon?
No, we do not.
All right, thank you. Okay. Clerk, will you please read the first item on the agenda?
Item 25-0446, an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $95 million in general obligation bonds of the City of Aurora, Kane, DuPage, Kendall, and Will Counties, Illinois, for the purpose of financing capital improvements in and for said city, providing for the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Finance Committee. Chris Minnick, Chief Financial Officer. The ordinance on this particular item actually authorizes the issuance of bonds in a par amount not to exceed $95 million for 2025 General Obligation Bond Series C. This is actually the series of bonds that we've been talking about with regard to the recent construction projects and capital projects that came through the City Council over the last, I'll say, 6 weeks to 2 months or so. These are issued to finance various, the bonds are being issued as tax-exempt general obligation bonds and will be financing various capital improvements such as fire construction, the fire station construction for stations 9 and 13, the construction of the new fire headquarters, EMA, and Emergency Operations Center facility, the River Edge Park expansion, Farnsworth built to roadway improvements, as well as the last disbursements on the Public Works facility. These are intended to be level debt service bonds with a 20-year term, and they do pledge the city's full faith and credit for repayment of the debt service amounts on an annual basis. And we estimate that the impact of those bonds and that additional tax levy will be about $9.25 monthly for the owner of a $300,000 house. These bonds will be competitively bid through an online process. The various bidders will submit their bids for the true interest cost of the bonds via an online process. And the lowest bid for that true interest cost, assuming that they're an otherwise qualified bidder, will win the bid and will market and sell the bonds on the city's behalf. The ordinance that's enclosed in the packet today is known as a parameters ordinance. It authorizes the issuance of the bond without further council action so long as certain parameters are met at the time of sale. The parameters are typically set wide enough to allow for changes in market conditions over the next several weeks. The bond market is a dynamic market. Its conditions and terms do change on a daily basis. And so it's impossible for us to say as we stand here today and talk over the ordinance exactly what those terms will be, but we have them outlined within the scope of the ordinance. The ordinance further authorizes staff to proceed with the bond sale, assuming that the parameters of the ordinance are met. The total of the bonds issued will not exceed $95 million in par. The exact par amount will be determined at the time of bond sale. We do not anticipate at this point in time that the par value will exceed $90 million. And again, that will be dependent upon market conditions. The current timeline for the bonds call for the bond sale to occur in late June with the bond closing in early to mid-July. I believe July 8th is the date that is currently identified to close on the bond issue and then take delivery of the proceeds. We do have a representative of Chapman, who is the city's bond counsel, present this evening. Chapman actually, as I mentioned, serves as the city's bond counsel, and they did prepare the ordinance that's in the packet. We have worked with Chapman for quite some time with regard to all, the overwhelming majority, if not all, of our debt issues. So at this time, I would like to introduce Kyle Harding, if he would stand up. And from Chapman, he is the author and representative for Chapman here today. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point.
I appreciate that, Mr. Minnick. Since you introduced him, would the representative from Chapman care to say anything, or no, since they came all this way? I'm not trying to make him to speak, but since he's here.
Happy to support Chris. Happy once again to be working with the city, and happy to answer any questions if there are any questions about the parameters bond ordinance. I think Chris did a great job giving you a summary of that.
Okay. Questions from the committee? Alderman Bug?
Thank you, Chairman. You outlaid the projects. It's our understanding that some of those projects that are ongoing may be into cost overruns at this time. So I wanted to get a little bit of a background on that, either from you or from our chief of staff, where we're at. And I understand we're going to have a kind of a memo later on about it, but since we're discussing it in finance, it's a
Yeah,
good time to discuss
I know
that.
when we have taken a look at the costs, we have tried to incorporate the most up-to-date numbers and the most current projections, as well as what we've expended to date on some of those projects. But there is always a potential that when we run into a project with a long construction, long lead time, that conditions, once we get in the field and start digging and start constructing, will be a little different than are anticipated. But we would address those at that particular time and identify funding sources if we needed to get any authorized, any change orders authorized, excuse me.
Okay. So specifically, thank you. Where are we at with River Edge Park? How much are they over budget currently? And where are we headed with that project?
Well, Shannon Cameron, Chief of Staff, Mayor's Office. So Alderman Bug, we had a meeting with Wegman not too long ago, who says although they've had delays in the project, they currently, at that time, which was maybe a week and a half ago, maybe a couple more days, stated that they were still planned to be on budget. So they did not ask that there needed to be an increase in budget in any way. What had happened is when they got into the ground over there, they realized they needed mini helical piers in order to stabilize the ground for the buildup of the beverage area, things like that, which is not surprising because when the city first constructed River Edge Park, they needed a lot of that. But I think when they got in there, they were even surprised by how much that was the case. So they said they were delayed a bit, but they've worked with the Aurora, with ACA. They've been working to make sure that Chris Kindle Market can be open on time. And then the rest of the park, they'll still be doing construction though later, and it'll be open for next summer. So they have been able to say that they plan on that, and that's still, and they have not come to us for more money at this point.
Okay. Well, excellent. So, I mean, it's excellent that if they're able to move the construction south, and because we've promised Crystal Kindle Market that they're going to be able to set up on a certain date, and
Yeah, so they're hoping for a lot of the structures to be built, but to be working then internally on some of those things. And they've already created a certain path to work around and be able to kind of cordon off areas that are still under construction to make sure they're safe for any visitors to the Christkindl Market.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's
Question.
good news, better news than we had heard.
Question.
Alderman Franco.
So why do we think there's any overruns? I've never heard of any overruns in these projects, so I'm not sure when we talk about budgeting for overruns, are there known overruns, or historically you have overruns?
Well, I believe that there have been overruns historically. I'm not aware of any overruns, and I will, I'll defer to Ms. Shannon as to how we account for all those and what she may know on these particular projects, but I'm not aware of any
Right.
of these projects.
So I know, for example, for River Edge Park, we're actually have tried to minimize some costs on that. For example, we asked Aurora Police Department to meet with River Edge staff and to look at the camera budget to see if we could reduce some of the ask, because it was a very high bid amount. And so we've reduced some of the equipment. That includes, scanning, scanners, of course, as well as the cameras. And we've been able to reduce that. That's going back out to bid, so we're unsure of where that will end, but we actually think it will be reduced. As far as the other projects go, I haven't received personally details on any of those being overrun. There may be some projection just depending on where it is, and that there might need to be more contingency than we made for it. I'm not sure, but I can look into it and let you know.
Well, yeah, I mean.
And that's a great point, that we do build contingencies
Right, yeah.
typically into the GMP as well as the final project that is authorized by council.
But there's just no known overruns, always potential.
Correct,
So,
yeah.
but also you mentioned the cameras. We're looking to get a cheaper price, but not less cameras, right? Is that what we're looking at?
No, there are some less cameras based on the Aurora Police Department looking and seeing if everything was needed. For example, there was just shown that there's different cameras, right? There's ones that can do a far larger view, some that just do kind of a singular, more narrow percentage. So they were looking at that. For example, if already a door is covered by 2 other cameras, we don't need a third one. It was really just looking at cost reduction. Still, everything is covered, so we can avoid, any risk as far as if someone, hopefully would never happen, break in, steal something, or would damage something. That all still would be covered. There is 24-hour security there as well, of course. But it was just making sure, because we have a lot of cameras already there as well, making sure that looking at what was already covered versus what new needed to be covered, and just making sure, because it came out to be around the first numbers we saw was over $800,000 just for cameras and the cards. So looking at how we can just make sure that everything is needed, and when we all sat down together, we noticed there were reductions available, and now we're going back out to bid for that.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, so just overall on the bond, and you laid it out very well, and we appreciate it. The overall, what the residents want to know is the possibility on their property tax bill
Yes.
is $108 on a $300,000 home.
Yes, approximately. And again, that may vary slightly, just depending on what the market conditions are on the day we actually sell. If we catch a good period where rates are a little lower, that could lower a little bit, but it's going to be in that general ballpark.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Minnick, we've talked about this already on the subject. Just for clarification, this bond allocation will be allocated for in the upcoming budget to be discussed later this year for 2025. It's not the budget that was approved in December of last year by City Council.
It
Correct.
actually is with regard to the 2025.
But the numbers from the allocation.
What was anticipated is that there were going to be 3 draws on those individual projects. Instead, we're combining the second and the third draw into the
Okay.
draw that you
Well,
see
then, The
tonight.
$9 then,
Oh, on the tax bill? Yes, it will be on next year's tax bill.
okay,
Yes.
that as well, okay.
Yes,
All right.
yes. I misunderstood the question.
No, it's okay,
Mr.
I was
Chair.
leading you into it.
Yes.
That's all right, no, appreciate it, all right.
I hope
Clerk?
so. Our little tax bill in Will County is due in 2 days, so I
mine-
hope it's that year.
And Kane County too. Okay, so if there are any other questions,
So moved.
motion to approve by Alderman Franco,
Second.
second by Alderman Bug. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank
Clerk-
you.
Thank you, Mr. Minnick. Clerk, please read the next item on the agenda.
Item 25-0458, an ordinance amending the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025 and ending December 31st, 2025. Amendment number 2 for the 2025 fiscal year.
Oh, Mr. Minnick, are you coming back?
Apologies, I was, one second. Okay, yes, so we actually have, one second, please, while I get to the right item. I apologize, there it goes. Chris Minnick, Chief Financial Officer again. What's enclosed in the packet is the first budget amendment for the fiscal year ended December 31st of 2025. As the committee is aware, each year we pass a budget in December, and then we enter into, excuse me, let me back up a second. We issue a budget and approve a budget in December for the upcoming fiscal year. And then occasionally we will have some items arise through which we will need to make some amendments for some items that were unanticipated at the time that the budget was passed. So what you see in the packet today is an ordinance that allows for the first budget amendment for fiscal year 2025. There is a combination of some items that have zero impact to the budget. There are some items that increase revenues, some items that increase expenditures, and then another couple of items that actually decrease the expenditures just based on the delivery of a few vehicles. Consistent with how we've presented budget amendment ordinances in the past, there is a description in the legislative text that deals with a description of exactly what line items are being changed and the overall general reasons for the change. And then those correspond to a detailed Excel spreadsheet that's also a little bit farther back in the packet. So just going through some of the items very briefly. Items 1 and 18 relate to fire services. The items are adjusting for the budget for estimated revenue that the city should receive. That's actually increasing our revenues by $18,000 and increasing expenditures by $6,000 related to some funding that the fire department received for the first time during 2024. Items 2 and 38 relate to offsetting revenues and expenditures for the budget for the African American Board annual dinner that takes place during February. The next item is items 3 and 6 items 3 through 6 that look at full-time salaries and benefits for the reclassification of the salary grade for the Chief Information Officer position from a grade E19 to E21. Additionally, we were able to achieve some sponsorship revenue under item number 7 for the senior golf scramble. That revenue was received during 2024 and utilized or anticipated to be utilized to offset the expenses of the 2025 event. Items 8 through 11 adjust the budget for the creation of a downtown economic development manager, and that increases expenditures by the amount of $123,200. Additionally, items 12 through 15 adjust salaries and benefits for a regrade of an administrative aide to a payroll specialist. Items 16 and 17 adjust the budget for expenditures related to a vehicle purchase for a division fire chief. Items 19 through 22 increase expenditures for the creation of assistant police records manager. And there's an additional reclass of an office manager to a an additional police records manager that's identified. Item number 31 adjusts the budget for an increase in the actual cost of performing a staffing study for the Aurora Police Department. And items 32 through 35 account for the regrade of a superintendent of facilities management position. Then item 36 relates to an alerting system for the fire department and increases the budget by approximately $37,500. Item 37 is a carryover for a solar reimbursement program to come out of Alderman at Large funds. Then we have, I mentioned a moment ago, we actually have a decrease of approximately a total of $1 million in expenditures for some vehicles, marked squad cars, a trailer-mounted pump, and a truck that were actually anticipated to be received and paid for during 2025. They were actually received and paid for during 2024, so we're removing them from the 2025 budget. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Question?
Mr. Frank, Alderman Franco.
So let's go to item 31. That was the professional fields consulting studies went up 101,000 and we budgeted 40.
Correct.
That seems like a pretty big discrepancy on what we thought it was going to cost. And I remember when it came through, but I don't remember all the details about it. Can you explain how we missed that mark by so much?
Yeah, I do not. I personally wasn't involved with the quote or the development of that particular budget item. However, we did go through an RFP process. I believe we ended up with 5 responses to the staffing study. We whittled that down to 2, and both of the finalists had proposals that were well in excess of the $40,000 estimate. I honestly believe that it was just a miss on the look at the allocation for the budget. Additionally, there was an additional task that was picked up that did add about $20,000 to the cost as we went through that process. But it based on the quotes that we received from both of the finalist vendors, that is the true cost of the study. Okay. that will be undertaken. Okay. Or is underway. And
then one question or comment. I added up all the numbers for the expenditures minus the vehicles plus the revenues. Does it sound right that we are net positive $435,720 when you look at all that stuff? What we're getting back, what revenues are minus expenditures? I mean, that's how I did it. I just added the revenues and the vehicle things, subtracted the expenditures, and I came in with a plus of 435. I don't need to know the exact, but does that sound like a ballpark figure that was a positive for us?
Well, given
I was
that,
happy when I saw that.
Given that the vehicles in and of themselves are about $1 million,
Yeah.
that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't
No,
do the
I'm just
math.
looking at it because I'm always like, are we doing good? And when I see plus 435,000, that makes me very happy. So I was just want to make sure my numbers, the way I looked at it was correct. I think my math is correct too, but I just want to make sure. Okay, I just want to throw that by you. Thank you. Thank you.
Overall, the amended budget is approximately 213,000 in the deduct, correct?
That's for one of the vehicles in the
No,
capital
overall.
improvements fund.
No, overall, I'm doing the math below line item 43. Overall, amended budget is minus 213, approximately.
Yes, that
Okay.
relates actually though specifically to that truck. That was the cost of the line item is actually 1,610,000. We're taking 213,000 away. The amended budget is 1,396,000 for that line item. That's what item 43 indicates.
No, but original budget, if you go to page 5, it says 56,743,000, correct?
On page 5.
Page 5,
Yes, for the capital improvements fund.
right.
Yes.
And the amended budget, 56,530,000, which is a difference of 213,000 approximately.
For that particular fund, yes.
Right, okay, all right. Okay. So overall, which way are we going with all the funds, approximately?
I believe, based on Alderman Franco's math, we're going down by about 435,000.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Okay, so that's how you you did the whole thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just added up the beauty from the trucks.
Okay.
Plus the revenues, and that gave me a number, and then I just subtracted the expenses. So for this
Okay.
particular amendment process, we're up 435,000, which is good. I mean, maybe it could be more, but plus I'm pretty happy about it.
All right. Alderman
Yes.
Bug.
Yeah, good is a relative term because we pushed the expenditures to a different year. They happened, they just didn't happen in '25.
Right.
31, I thank my colleague Alderman Franco for bringing this up on the study. I just want to talk about process a little bit. So normally, if there is an additional increase, it would be, the proper process would be for the police department to come back with a new agenda item and let us know that this is over $50,000 from the original estimate. So did the police department not do that process, or why are
don't-
we just finding it out in our budget amendment and we don't have the police here talking to us with the vendor and those numbers? I mean, like Carl said, I remember the resolution.
Yes.
I don't even remember the name of the vendor. And so I was gonna go back and pull the resolution, but it was a while ago, so that would have taken time. So, I mean, I just trying to understand the process.
Yeah, the resolution did indicate the total cost. I don't know that it indicated the budget, the budget amount. But it was approved, the expenditure was approved in the amount of $141,080 or there. Whatever that number.
So in our resolution, we had the new amount?
Correct.
Okay. So our original estimate was 40, and it came out to be 140.
Correct.
Okay.
The budget was 40. The final
Correct.
number, concrete number is 140.
140, yeah.
141.
Yeah, 141,800.
Well, if we could just we're just the committee, for COW, if we could just have, like, the name of the vendor and, we could see a little bit why we went from 40. I understand you said we added 20,000 on, so why are we going from 40 to 140 instead of 40 to 60?
Matrix. It was Matrix Matrix Consulting? I think it's Matrix Consulting is
Okay.
the name of the vendor. We'll nail it down for you before
Yeah.
COW.
Yeah, at COW, and it's not even,
Okay.
it's not even necessarily you, of course. I don't want you to speak for the police department. But if they have someone who can step up and say, hey, this is, you know, we thought it was gonna be this amount, and they looked at it, and it's
Yeah. I'll talk with the
140
command
instead of
staff
40.
and make sure that they're
Yeah.
prepared to discuss it
Yeah.
at COW.
That's the only question I had.
Right.
If I could add on to that, and this isn't something I expect you to know, but how often, I'd be interested in knowing how often we get these studies done, because if it's on like a long-term basis, maybe that explains why the cost was so much different than what we budgeted for, but you know, if it's a more frequent thing, then, you know, maybe hopefully we can budget more accurately next time.
I do believe that there was a small staffing study, that was performed somewhere in the early to mid 2010s, that was discussed, if memory serves right, when this came through the process for the city council back in maybe February. However, a staffing study that was this comprehensive and to this scope has not been undertaken for quite some time. And I believe that Mr. Alexander, if I remember correctly, indicated that he was not aware of one to this extent that had been done during his tenure, so, here at the city. So, it is typically a fairly long time or interval between those studies, as I recall, from the discussion, but yes.
Okay, good.
Mr.
So
Minnick.
this won't be, you know, something that will come up again anytime soon, so that's good.
Mr. Minnick, this was in the budget, correct? This
was in the- it was
Originally
in the budget.
budgeted before it went out to bid, or RFP, RFQ.
It was budgeted,
Right.
and then we went through a
Alright.
request for proposals or qualifications.
So it wasn't a surprise to city council at the time.
I don't believe it was.
It shouldn't have been, that's the whole idea, it's not supposed to be. I mean, if it was budgeted item,
Yes.
came before us, and the only challenge is it went from 40,000 to 141,000, approved at 141,000 level, eventually by city council, and the change in numbers, and we're talking about making that adjustment here with your budget, right?
Yeah, we're formally proposing the adjustment to the
Okay.
budget right now.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. 0059. Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Minnick?
Not on that
No.
unless there are additional
Anyone else from
questions.
the committee? Yes.
I'll just,
Alderman.
to help out our new alderman a little bit. You were correct, I'm pretty sure. We did a small scale, I think pretty much all first responders, did a small scale study about 2015, I want to say. The police had never done a full scale study of every aspect of their department.
That's my recollection
Yeah.
of the discussion as
So,
well.
if it was ever done, it was many decades ago, before AA, he can remember, so, yeah, this is a full-scale study.
Did you find the resolution number?
The Legistar number we have, yes,
Okay.
Ms. Coulter.
Is it possible to get that Legistar number over to Alderman Bug and to Alderman Larson, more importantly, as well, so he can get himself familiar with what was approved by the city council at the 141 level?
Yes, we'll make sure, we'll
Or at least
probably
work
put
with
it,
our-
yeah, we'll make
Work
sure.
with our
that
staff as well to
that's-
help make that happen, be greatly appreciated.
Yep.
All right, any other questions?
Second.
Okay, motion to approve by Alderman Bug, second by Alderman Carl Franco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass 4-0. Thank Thank you again, Mr. Minnick.
Thank
I don't know if we need you for the second one, or the third line item. Clerk, would you please read the next item on the agenda?
Item 25-0449, a resolution to select GNV Urban Art as a consultant to use existing funds for the Luminara Festival 2025, the city's second annual interactive light and sound experience.
Good afternoon, members of the Finance Committee. I'm Chris Regona, Director of Community Services. This item will be talking about the upcoming 2025 Luminara Light Festival.
Do you have a presentation? Oh, yes, you do.
I
Oh,
do.
Wonderful. Okay.
Let's see if we can get this to work. Oh, there we go. All right, so we'll be taking a look at the inaugural event. We'll be looking at the 2025 event, next steps, the selection of our vendor, GNV Urban Art. I do want to mention that a representative, Irina, is on the line via Zoom, so maybe if we can wait, if you have any questions for her, we can wait till the end of the presentation.
Yes.
And we can pull her up. So we'll talk about the selection process, next steps, and I think more importantly for new members of the community and a new alderman, the question is, what is Luminara? So why don't we take a look at this 1-minute video here, and that'll give you a good flavor of the event. So let's see if this plays. So Luminara was throughout the month of October, the main festival took place over Columbus Day weekend. So all the shots you're seeing here were during the main weekend. That was down Water Street Mall, the Sonic Runway. All right. So just a couple of statistics by the numbers. We estimated about 15,000 visitors through the main weekend from October 11th to October 13th. As I mentioned, this was a month-long festival, so we did have a number of sort of activations of the Sonic Runway. A big thanks to Danielle Tufano for putting all of those on. And then we had, potentially hundreds of residents just dropping by to interact with the installations. So on top of the 15,000 visitors, we were probably closer to 20. In reviewing some of the tools to measure economic impact, we're estimating about 58% of the attendees of the main weekend were from Aurora, with 42% coming from the outside. And I think interesting, 7% came from over 50 miles away. When looking at the economic impact, factoring in potential meals, merchandise, incidentals, lodging, our Aurora Area Convention and Visitors Bureau estimated that Luminara generated about $2.1 million in economic impact to the city of Aurora. All right, additional by the numbers, we had 55 individual art installations. Many remember some of the main anchor installations, so a lot of the ones that you saw in the video. But there were also several others that maybe only cost a few $100s that were placed throughout the downtown that visitors got to interact with. And as I mentioned, in addition to the main weekend, we had 18 days of entertainment at the Sonic Runway. So we invited our boards and commissions, other partners. We had other events like the T-Swift takeover, and I believe there was maybe several line dancing events potentially, all of which generated on a much smaller scale, but certainly important for the residents to come and visit the downtown. In addition to city funds, we received a $192,000 and some change grant from Illinois DCEO for a tourism grant. That required a 1-to-1 matching grant, so the city was able to pull general funds to match that grant amount. Estimated total costs for 2024 were around $570,000. That included all of the art installations, performers, live entertainment, security, logistics, production, and everything else that you'd need in order to pull an event like this together. Also trying to measure feedback. So we had several surveys that we put out to the attendees, local businesses, and vendors and artists. We received certainly lots of positive feedback, but we did want to try and focus on not so much the negative feedback, but just areas where we can potentially enhance for 2025. So just a few of those: enhanced marketing and promotion, website integration, recognition of artists, more wayfinding signage, and the payment processing procedure. So we're looking to really enhance our process for 2025, since this is our second year and we were sort of learning, given that it was a new event. The attendees, we're looking for additional food trucks, increased seating, large variety of live entertainment, which we'll talk about for 2025, larger event space. Some actually wanted a smaller, more contracted event space, but that's what you get when you have, close to 200 responses. And then increased amenities. And then lastly, from our local businesses, they were looking for a larger event space, potentially event merchandise, enhanced marketing, and further website integration. So we are going to be working on all of those to try and incorporate those for 2025. So here is our current Luminora planning team. I hope I got everybody on here. I think what's important to note is that it really does take lots of our different departments and divisions in the city to pull something like this together. Last year, our facilities, legal team, finance, community services, special events, communications, representatives from our mayor's office, public works, our electricians, purchasing, public art, APD, AFD, and a number of volunteers put all this together. So the map is a little small here, but I do want to highlight our proposed Luminora boundaries. It is a little bit bigger than last year, but we're going to be trying to work with our vendor to maximize the spaces within the city, try and decentralize it a little bit so some of our visitors will visit different areas of the downtown, and to make sure that our proposed art installations fit within the city. So these are potentially subject to change over the next several months during the summer. We're going to be finalizing the boundaries. So here's our initial timeline for selecting one vendor. We started this process at the beginning of the year, drafting a all-encompassing RFP. Last year, if you remember, we put out 7 different requests for proposals and then brought them through City Council individually. That was a little bit difficult. So this year we're trying one major vendor who would then work with all of our, subcontractors. So the city isn't managing dozens of contracts. We're managing one contract and working with our vendor to then work directly with our artists, our vendors, everything in between. So pretty much the month of March is when we did that. We had the due date March 26th, and then we utilized the month of April to review the proposals. So here's our top 3. GNV Urban Art was selected as the highest vendor. We looked at creativity and concept, experience and expertise, budget alignment, community engagement, and operational excellence. In looking at GNV's submission, it was the most comprehensive. They demonstrated they have artist curators, visual design experts, festival production experience, as well as live event experience. As we encountered as a city, there were lots of last-minute issues that came up that we were trying to correct on the fly. And in interviewing references and going through that process, they were able to talk extensively how they've encountered that at past events that they've done in North Carolina, Arizona, and even Italy, and how they were able to pivot and make decisions. So we felt that they were the best vendor to hit all of our different criteria. So I'll go over these a little more quickly. This is what the festival could look like. These are going to be sort of your main anchor installations for anyone that remembers Luminora last year. We're hoping to do projection mapping on the GAR Military Museum again. It's a recycling sort of 2-minute visual and audio art show that would be designed specifically for the GAR Military Museum. Next, we have the potential for a laser show on the top of Leland Tower. If for some reason this doesn't work out, they proposed multiple alternatives, so we don't necessarily have lights shooting up into the sky. We can have them visually displayed along, let's say, the Paramount Building and a few other areas. This is the LED bonfire. So this would be across from the old post office or the old SciTech building, depending on how you remember it. We really are looking for interactive and visual and audio components for a lot of our installations. Here's another which could be put in Mundy Park, interactive light and sculpture garden. So touch sensitive surfaces, motion sensors, sound reactive triggers, a lot of the components that we had in last year. Here's a concept called the Pixel Starscape. So this would be replacing the Sonic runway. This is a little bit more ADA friendly. If you were here during the main festival, the Sonic runway got a little clogged up at times. So we want to make sure we're trying to be as accessible as possible if someone were to need to exit the area. Additionally, when we're talking about accessibility, we do want to have advanced wayfinding both in English and Spanish. Last year we had someone who spoke American Sign Language, so we hope to bring her back again this year to help some of our folks who speak American Sign Language. We are trying to be as intentional as possible when we're selecting our locations to be accessible. We're going to be bringing back additional parking for seniors and persons with disabilities, and hoping that our partner Fox Valley Special Recreation Association can have their pop-up tent for their sensory zone. So folks that are around blinking lights and large crowds might need a more quiet area. We're hoping to bring that booth back. All right, the Dance with Lasers, this was at Luminora last year, but through a partnership with Wabanzi Community College, they were the ones that ran this contract. We're hoping to bring that back and show it on the side of Leland Tower. What you can do is dance in front of a screen, and then it projects your dance moves potentially 100 feet in the air. So we're pretty excited about that one. Here is The Last Ocean. This artist is the same artist who created the pool, which was across from Development Services. What I like about this one is you can increase or decrease the size and design. You can also push all the pieces together, so someone on a wheelchair could conceivably interact with this one, whereas the pool you couldn't do that because of the gaps in spaces. Here are the Barrel Boys. The Barrel Boys will be returning for the second Luminora Festival. The design is pretty easy. It looks like just barrels, as the title says, but in my 3 days of the main festival, this one probably had the most pictures taken in front of it. So we're pretty excited about that one. Location to be determined. We want to make sure it's in a high traffic area. And then to fill in the gaps of all of those, we're looking at smaller installations. So sculptural installations, interactive installations, laser installations. And I think one key is really trying to activate the DLP third floor gallery. Last year we did have a small exhibit up there, but I think through additional wayfinding signage, we really want to get people up there this year. So many of the surveys talked about a different variety of entertainment. I think the 3 bands that we've secured here, 16 Candles, the Hairbangers Ball, and Selena the Show, definitely show that. So they'll be performing during the main weekend over Columbus weekend, in addition to others. On top of the live entertainment, we are trying to bring back roving performers again. So aerial acrobatists, fire dancers, jugglers, roving musicians. We're going to be working with our vendor to try and maximize as many roving performers as we can. Many of our guests took pictures with the jugglers. There was even some demonstrations that went on. So we really want to try and increase the number of roving performers that we have. So here is our proposed budget. It's broken up between the first 5 line items for our vendor GNV, and then the other 3 line items the city will be handling. So we'll be handling the live entertainment, we'll be handling a portion of the marketing, as well as some additional contingency funding. We're hoping to use this for roving performers or any additional enhancements that we can for the festival. One note, you will see 2 line items for marketing. Feedback that we receive from the surveys is looking at different opportunities and ways to market. Certainly we have our communications division who did a great job last year, but trying to tap into GNV's industry and marketing style on top of what communications is already doing is only going to be an enhancement to the marketing plan. This budget is on par with 2024. I do want to note that we already have $42,000 in sponsorships. We have a pending $200,000 grant, and we're hoping to really grow our sponsorships as the summer goes on. Any additional funds received will offset the cost of what's been budgeted by the city. It will not increase the budget. So here's our next steps. We are looking forward to City Council voting on June 10th. We are planning a site visit with our vendor. You know, you can look at maps and everything, but really being on foot, figuring out the exact measurements, figuring out the concepts, and then working with different artists from across the country. That'll be taking place, you know, through the months of July and August. We're hoping to finalize our production planning in September and then hitting the ground running for about 3 weeks starting in October. So with that, I'm going to open up the door for any questions. And like I mentioned, we do have Irina from GNV Urban Art, if she's able to maybe speak for a few moments.
Sure, if she's interested, absolutely. She introduce herself. She's going to chime in, right?
Hello. Hi, thank you so much for having us today. My name is Arina and this is Charles. So he's my partner on the production side. Monochronicle, or GNV Urban Art LLC, which is the legal name, is an artist network and production company. We specialize in big scale arts such as murals, sculptures, digital arts, light experiences, festivals. We have experience producing various events similar to Luminora, and this year we are planning on expanding it and making it amazing for visitors of the city and local community.
Question? All right, well, thank you for coming online here with us. Mr. Ragone, a question for you, just for my own clarity before we start discussion here on the committee. The agenda item here, the resolution calls out for $415,000 proposed budget. In your presentation, you brought it up to $550. Am I correct? You're asking for additional funding?
So what we're looking for today is the vendor contract, which is for $415,000. The total Luminora budget is around $550,000.
Okay. Now, I didn't write down all the items in regards to your presentation, what's included in the budget, but how does that compare to the request for proposal that also has contingencies, also has security in line items, et cetera, called out in here?
So in your packet, we have the original proposal. The page after that is the revised proposal. So what we did is...
It just says project timeline. I'm looking at Exhibit B.
So when we went through the original RFP process, GNV...
Page 26 out of 44, it says here.
Okay. Let me take a look here. Our process was to review their proposed budget. In working with our vendor, we looked for ways to redistribute the dollars based on what the city was capable of, based on what we were looking for. Things like permits, for example. We don't necessarily need to get any permits for this event, but they had budgeted for it. So we tried to move that money over to, say, additional art installations. They had a higher line item for marketing. In working with them, we talked about what we did last year, the fact that we have our own communications division, but that it still would enhance the marketing to reduce their budget from what they originally had, and then again, move that money over to additional art installations. So they started with a budget proposal, and working with them, they refined that budget based on multiple conversations with city staff.
All right, so they refined it to 415.
Mhm.
Okay.
Correct. They also gave us several alternatives. I think their original proposal was well over 600,000
Okay.
as different options, and we decided to not go with some of those alternatives.
And you want to keep it at 550 internally for any additional things that might pop up when you're negotiating with them, or we want to do an addition to?
So right now, we're looking at 550 out the door. 415,000 would come from our vendor, GNV. The remaining funds, the city would handle through live entertainment, additional contingencies, marketing costs. That would get us closer to the 550.
Okay, because there's marketing costs in this exhibit from the vendor.
Correct. So,
So
what
what would be the difference between the marketing we do and they do? Just to help me out.
So this could be a good answer for GNV. You know, there's a way to do marketing from a local government side. There is also a different kind of experience from you could say our industry experts on the way that they can market an event like this. What I see this as is a collaboration, just two different styles of marketing with the end goal of trying to get as many people to come visit Luminora. So Irina, did I answer on your behalf, or would you like to add some more?
Yes, I'll just add that we will work together with the team that we already in touch with, and we will see what the city can cover, and we will use additional our resources to market it and try to attract more visitors of the city.
So who would be in control, Mr. Regona, overall,
Well, our
of
director.
these line items?
Of the
that
line
might-
items?
That might overlap with what we're trying to do as well, what you mentioned in your presentation.
So they'll be working hand in hand with the city, specifically for the marketing line item, that would be communications. They'll have a representative assigned to them to make sure we're not duplicating any type of marketing efforts. That would be, during our planning process. So when they
Okay.
come out for a site visit in June, we would sit down. We have two major line items, but we want to try and break that down so that could be targeted social media. We did billboards last year. We did interviews with local news. We even did some, poster boards on the smaller scale. I think locally, the city can do a good job of that. But outside of that 50-mile area is where our partners can do. We're only in year 2 of this festival. If you think about how some of the other larger festivals started, they started similar to Luminora did and have since ballooned
Okay.
over the last decade or so.
So overall, communications department is going to be overseeing how the vendor's budget is executed, and also our budget is executed as well.
Well, at least from the marketing line items. As far as reviewing the overall contract, I believe that will stay in community services. Right now, we do have a vacancy with our director of public art. Once that individual is online, I can imagine them sort of reviewing the entire contract,
Okay.
processing payments, making sure we're staying on
Okay,
budget.
all right, so-
For the time being, that will be myself.
All right, so we do have an internal control on this.
Correct,
That's what I'm trying to
yes.
get. Okay, fantastic. Any questions by the committee?
Question.
Alderman Bug.
Thank you. Yeah, you started answering there a little bit at the end, so I'm trying to follow last year to this year. So, we did not have an overall third-party vendor last year. Our director of public art oversaw the program. She brought those things forward to finance, the installations, all those things. We passed them. She was the coordinator, we'll say. So this year we went out, found someone, and a little bit of my question is, because of timing of this, if we had a director of public art, how would things have been different?
I don't know if they necessarily would have been different. We had several debrief meetings after Luminora, and we talked with our finance department, we talked with purchasing, we talked with our mayor's office, and it seemed like the a la carte format that we went with, where we were individually negotiating with all of these different artists and production companies, turned a bit chaotic and hard to track as the summer went on. Additionally, trying to manage all the logistics and the installations, The art installations were not running at 100% all the time. There was some troubleshooting that had to go on. There was coordination with security, coordination with our vendors. We felt a one-stop shop was the best option. So even if we had a director of public art, right now, I still feel like this one major vendor would have been the route we would have chosen to go.
Okay. And for them to, of course, work with the director of public art.
Certainly.
Yeah, okay. Kind of like Alderman Masiakas, I was reading the full proposal and adding up those numbers, and of course, they came up almost to $1 million. So I was trying to get from that number and that original proposal back down to 415. So you brought us there eventually. I'm looking forward to a great festival. We did a great job last year. We're looking forward to working with our new vendor. I just happened to be talking to relatives this past weekend who drove in from, I don't know, Mokina or somewhere. I didn't even know they were there. But they raved about it the whole weekend. And, they went back to Mokina and told all their friends, and more people came. So it's the first year out, we did a very good job and learned a lot of things. We look forward to even bigger and better things.
Thank you. And one point, and I think I'll clarify this for Committee of the Whole. So we do have a budget breakdown, the title, which was the original proposal, and you're correct, Alderman Bug, it was much more. The page directly behind it says updated budget and payment schedule, and that reflects the $415,000 and the line items that I mentioned.
Yeah.
So we'll do a little bit better a job of outlining that for Committee of the Whole. I think that'll help.
It's just the order that I read the exhibits in. So I read that Exhibit A. I was like, okay.
I think what we'll do is we'll extract that so it'll be its own exhibit and it'll be a 2-pager rather than having the full RFP.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alderman Franco.
So, total cost is gonna be $550. We're subtracting $415 from that, because we're gonna pay that. That leaves us $135,000 out of our pocket. You said we got $42,000 in sponsorships already?
Correct.
And I didn't get the amount for the grant. How much of the grant?
Well, so that's pending. It's not
Okay.
received. That's around $200,000.
So, all right, so my question is then, we got $135,000 between the $415 and the $550. Does the $42,000 for sponsorship reduce that $135 by $42,000? Or do we get down to, where does that fit into this $550, I guess is what I'm asking?
So our starting point is estimated cost of $550,000.
Right.
The $42,000 will subtract from that.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if that's city share,
Sure.
vendor
Right.
share. Same thing with the grant. That
Okay.
would reduce it by potentially $200,000. If there are any additional opportunities for sponsorships, if we decide to go the route of merch, last year we partnered with Two Brothers, so there was a share of products that they sold. Any additional money that's received will reduce our bottom line.
Okay.
So think of an example of like Fiestas Patrias, where the city front funds quite a bit. And then while this isn't a ticketed event, tickets and beer sales and all of that reduce the overall cost. While I don't think we'll get to zero this year, I do believe we're going to see quite a few sponsorships. We're hoping on the large grant. We're going to try and be seeking some sponsorships from some larger partners, and I think showcasing the great work that we did last year. It was a little bit harder to get sponsorships since it was the first year we were doing it. We didn't. It was hard to show them exactly what the event was. This year we have lots of pictures and metrics and videos, which we can incorporate when we're soliciting partners.
So in reality, we could be down to, well, zero would be great, but we could be down to maybe 100 or a couple $100,000 out of our pocket by the end when all this is accumulated.
If we
Theoretically.
receive the state grant for $200,000, we will be close to $200,000 of city share.
Okay.
Anything else on top of that would further reduce the number.
Okay. All right, good, thank you, appreciate it.
I appreciate that question, Alderman Franco. Is there a way to get that a little bit more clarified in writing somehow on this resolution docket for the COW?
Certainly, we can do that.
That'd be wonderful, because it was similar sentiments, trying to understand all the numbers as well as.
I wasn't sure if the 550.
Want to get your
the 40
microphone?
I wasn't sure if the 550 was already reduced by 42 or the grant, so I didn't know if that was, and that's a great place. That's our starting point, was it being above that. So, yes, that's a good thing to know, because at the end of the day, the good news is we may not cost as much at all. So that's, however you can paraphrase that would be wonderful, because that's really what people are looking for. What's our cost gonna be at the end of the day, theoretically, proposed-wise? So that'd be great.
And I think that's one of the highlights of why we have dual marketing campaigns. As hopefully this event continues to ascend upward, like some of the other light festivals across the country, really trying to drive the folks from over 50 miles away to come visit us, as well as, a local campaign. More people, more visitors will generally equal more sponsorships and more opportunities. And that's what we're hoping, at least as a starting point for year 2, and then hoping to continue scaling up for, the next several years.
All right. Alderman Larson.
Yeah, just to compare between what we're planning for this year and what actually happened last year. Again, it was the first time we were doing this last year, and I think in the presentation you said there were, 55 art installations? How many are planned for this year? Is it a larger number, or are they maybe going to be more major?
So we'll be working with our vendor. I think something important to note is the number 55. Some of our artists had, the theme was portals last year. So one of our artists came up with, it was like 12 to 16 different small portals throughout the city. These were some of the smaller ones that I talked about, the ones that were maybe just a few $100s. More installations doesn't necessarily mean better. We could have a smaller number of installations that are larger in scale. So we'll be working with our vendor to try and find a middle ground, I think.
Okay. I guess another question I have, with featuring local artists, are there plans to feature a number of local artists this year, and were there local artists featured last year? How can we improve including our own local art community?
Certainly. So I think, Irina, one of the things we really liked about your proposal was the fact that you are going to be targeting local artists. Before she answers, we did have local artists. We had local teachers who utilized the David L. Pierce Center. We also had international artists from Canada. We had artists from Iowa, so really across, North America. Irina, if you wanted to add on to that.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. I do believe it's important to include local artists. That's why in the proposal I suggested that. And I believe even though we might not have many artists who specialize in a specific media in Aurora, we can connect them or mesh them with someone experienced so they learn and they can use their creativity, design, suggestions, and work with someone who is more into tech knowledge to bring it to life. So our plan is to release an open call and target specifically Aurora artists, engineers, fine artists, anyone related who can work with our team, and then we will make sure that they were executed properly.
Great.
And I would also like to add that it's good to have someone with a big name, like an international artist or a national artist, because that helps bring visitors from miles away. And it's always good to have someone regional that would reduce cost of logistics. So we will try to keep the balance between all.
Great. Yeah, I guess the only other question I have is there any idea for the amount of turnout that we're hoping for this year? I'm expecting it'll be bigger than last year because it's not the first time we're doing this. Hopefully people already know about it more than they did at the time of the first festival. So do we have any estimates for how many people we're planning to bring out this time?
Well, we're going to be working with our vendor to look at different ways to capture those metrics. Certainly we had some ways in place last year. I think that we can enhance that process. The other thing to consider is the weather. So last year, Friday and Saturday was great. Sunday, it was very cold and windy to the point where the drone show was canceled. If we have great weather by the nature of that, I can expect our numbers to go way up. We could have a great festival, but if the weather is very cold and rainy, I can see our numbers to drop. But given the fact that this is year 2, I really do expect our numbers to go up. It's the way that we try and capture those metrics that might make a little bit of a difference. So
Okay.
we'll hopefully refine that this summer on what our estimates are and then how we can try and capture those numbers.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Gordon? Yeah, but this year, and looking at all these documents, we're looking at 2 full weeks as opposed to almost a whole month last year, correct?
So this year, we're going to have 3 weekends spread over 2 weeks. So we'll have the start of the fest will be the weekend of the main festival, and then we'll have 2 weekends in there. We are going to try and activate elements of Luminora. You know, some of the installations will only be there for the weekend, like the projection mapping on the GAR Military Museum, for example. But some of the other, as we call anchor installations, we're hoping to activate those again in some capacity. So reaching out to our partners, you know, offering different space, potentially having another T-Swift night or whatever is popular in the music industry these days, to try and get, you know, smaller groups of people out. We know we won't be able to replicate the main weekend with the live entertainment, but our goal is to try and get pockets, you know, 50, 100, 200 people out. Potentially like Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. Certainly Monday and Tuesday are a little bit slower. We have city council meeting those nights as well. So we probably won't be trying to activate anything 7 days a week. It'll more be like 3 or 4 days. So we're not losing coverage by half because we are going to have those 3 weekends.
Is that all, Alderman Bug?
So, okay.
Okay. Well, I got a question for you generally, from maybe even an artistic standpoint of what's happening. We're anticipating moving forward best practices, which pieces work, which don't work, interchangeable maybe around the downtown, or even we just don't do anything anymore. For example, I never understood the lamppost one last year. I mean, I understood how it was supposed to work, but it just didn't seem like it was working. It gave me a little frustrated every time I came out of a council meeting, walking down, I'm not gonna lie to you, and I was like, wow, maybe it needed a higher lamppost or not, and, or trajectory. But moving forward, there's gonna be internal decision, right, and what works, what doesn't work, working with the vendor?
Certainly, you know, things that were great successes last year, like the pool, for example, we wanted something like that. So we're going to work with our vendor and the artist that we used last year. As I
Okay.
mentioned, The Last Ocean is kind of similar.
Okay.
Other art installations were maybe not as popular, so we're going to try and choose to bring back new things as we can. The Barrel Boys, as I mentioned, will bring those back, but I think keeping it fresh, keeping new things, keeping different elements with different layers of you know, interactiveness, I think is important.
How do we gauge the popularity? By survey, or do we keep track of how many people go to a specific
Well,
exhibit?
So I think it depends. Like the pool, for example, was very kid friendly. There was always lots of kids on there. The shadowing example, like you're talking about, that was really for everybody. There were many times where I was coming out of work and you can see, you know, adults and seniors interacting with it. Some of the other examples, like Sonic Runway, was for everybody. Everybody kind of wanted to experience and walk through the runway. Because it is outdoors and it's not ticketed, you know, it's hard to come up with specific metrics. You know, 20,000 people walk through so-and-so. What we could do is in our surveys, we could add the elements of the main anchors and figure out, you know, what did you like about the fest? You know, were you somewhat satisfied with, let's say, The Last Ocean? You know, we could try and do that to see what people liked and what people didn't like. I think just through city staff walking around, we can see what was being used, I think, more than other elements. So those are things that we can talk about our vendor to see how we can potentially capture that. And maybe that's just the good old-fashioned someone with a clipboard during the main festival walking around and asking questions. Hey, what do you like? What don't you like? What can we see better?
All right. All right, appreciate that. I have no more questions. If there are any more questions by the committee, what's the will of the committee moving on this resolution or not moving?
So moved to approve.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Bug, second by Carl Franco, Alderman Carl Franco. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion pass carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Agona.
Thank you.
I'll tell you, this is my first meeting as chairman here of this committee. We gotta figure out a way to get through this faster than an hour, 15 minutes on 3 items, I would think, right? But then we are talking budget, so maybe that's the reason. That's important. Next item, we have something on held here on the agenda. Clerk, would you read that item before I make a comment?
Item 25-0419, a resolution authorizing the payment of a grant construction payment to VNA Healthcare in the amount of $500,000 to defray the capital cost of the construction of the Weston Avenue Primary Care Center.
Okay, albeit that I'm new chair here, can somebody explain to us first and foremost why it was held? Before we have
I
this.
believe there were some additional questions and some additional backup information that the new administration needed related to this particular item.
All right.
It's my understanding that those questions have been answered.
Okay, great, all right. And who's going to lead the presentation here today?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here to answer questions.
Okay. Bloomhaven is a mixed-use redevelopment of the dilapidated site of the former Copley Hospital campus, just south of the downtown in the city of Aurora. It represents approximately a $129 million investment in the community, and the site incorporates senior housing, medical offices, a school administration building, a community park, and also contains Bardwell residences, which includes 99 Studio 1 and 2-bedroom apartments. In addition to the amenities described, the developer has also leased a portion of the campus to VNA Health for the construction and operation of a health clinic on the campus. VNA Health provides healthcare services at several locations throughout the city and regionally as well. They also fill a need by providing quality, affordable health care regardless of a patient's insurance status or ability to pay. Their services are crucial for community well-being for city residents. The Bloomhaven Clinic was constructed to provide an array of services, including primary care, mental health counseling, immediate care, women's health, OBGYN, pregnancy care, and pediatrics. The VNA Clinic is viewed as a very beneficial service to have available on the Bloomhaven campus and for the surrounding neighborhood and area to meet area health care needs. As such, city officials met with VNA in July of 2024. City wished to contribute to the financial well-being of VNA's clinic and made a pledge of city financial support to the clinic in the amount of $500,000 to defray the construction costs. The pledged financial support was to be released upon completion of the clinic and issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Relevant terms were memorialized in a letter from the summer of 2024, which is also attached in the packet. The clinic was completed in April of 2025, and the city did receive a request from VNA Health for the pledged revenue and payment, and it is appropriate that the payment now be approved for release in accordance with the funding pledge. Funds are available for this purchase. Staff is therefore requesting a motion to approve the $500,000 disbursement to VNA Health to defray the costs of the Bloomhaven Clinic as pledged by the city. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'm going to let the committee go first. Any questions by any members of the committee? All right, Alderman Larson.
Yeah, I have some questions. So it says that this is budgeted in the 2025 GO bond fund, and it's been earmarked. So is this included in the 2025 budget process?
Due to the timing, it was not actually incorporated within the budget process, but we do have funds available to effectuate the $500,000 payment.
Okay. I guess my question is it normal for money to be pledged? As I understand, the city council has to agree on expenditures over a certain amount. Is it normal for $500,000 to be promised without city council approval, or was this approved by city council before I was on?
It was not approved by city council. This is the first council action that is being requested for this particular tranche of funding.
Okay.
The reason why it was held was because we were confused. This administration was confused when we saw this on there, is because we saw that it hadn't gone through council. And for a ticket like this, a redevelopment agreement would most likely go to council for a vote. So I truly think this was just an oversight of the last administration. But there was there was a letter as well as many emails back and forth that we were able to find committing this money. And while it is a bit of a legal gray area, whether we actually owe that funds, we are in support of the VNA and the work it does. We want to make good on this promise, but it was an oversight.
Yeah, and that is correct. There is an email trail that goes back to last summer between the city and VNA that does pledge the revenue and the support. Excuse me, pledges the payment and the support to the VNA clinic.
Okay. Yeah, I understand this is a promise that we're expected to follow through on. I guess it puts us in a tricky situation, but it's where we are. So, thank you.
Alderman Bug.
Thank you. Chief of Staff, you're being a little bit more gracious than I'm going to be. This was pledged by one person, the mayor of this city, former mayor. There was no consideration given to this council. There was no memo. There was no resolution in July 2024. I trust as we go forward, the new administration will act under the guidance and our set regulations in the finance department. So yes, our new alderman is correct. Everything over $50,000 comes before this board and tribunal. So a letter from our former mayor to VNA, no matter how much good they're doing, and they do vast amount of good work in our city. That was an agreement between the mayor and that CEO. There is no mention in the letter that the mayor would be seeking the approval of the city council. It says that the finance department will get the letter requesting the funds and finance will send it. $500,000.
Excuse me, Alderman Bug, the email trail does indicate that there will be an approval process, that it will go through.
We don't have that.
I will make sure you have it for copy.
Okay. I'm reading the letter from the mayor to VNA.
I understand.
And even if it isn't the email trail, it did not come to fruition because we're in 2025, summertime. This is complete. When I read this and read it in detail, my dear friend, Alderman O'Connor, was in my ear because he hated ratifications. And every time a department came for one, We let them know that that is not the way we do business in the city of Aurora, the finance department, or the city council. We do not ratify things. We do not find out after the fact. Because
I
that
agree.
is a disservice to our citizens.
I was simply going to indicate that I agree with your opinion and your discussion points, Alderman Bug, and we will hold the number of ratifications to an absolute minimum and maintain them only for emergency types of items.
Yes, that is what ratification is for, pure emergencies. And they happen,
I will also just say from your earlier point, Alderman Bug, that it is an early on cautionary tale for all of us to make sure that we're always following our due diligence, as we want to make sure that we're passing through everything through the proper processes and following all of our city code and ordinances.
Okay. So I will just say this. I don't know if you're going to put it through to a vote. Chairman, I would definitely have the VNA here at COW because,
We actually do have a representative of VNA present today.
oh, please stand up.
Good afternoon, Linnea Wendell from VNA Healthcare.
Welcome. Go ahead.
I'll let you speak. I know you have read the two letters that we have in our packet,
Yes.
so I'll let you speak to what transpired, how it transpired, because VNA has received other funds from the city, so I think they are familiar with the process. So even if someone in charge told you something differently, but I'll let you speak to the two letters.
Sure. So just for a little bit of background, you may be aware, but VNA Healthcare was established here in Aurora in 1918, and indeed we have had great support from the city for over 100 years with different projects along the way. We very much appreciate your support. And this project was to construct a 26,000 square foot medical facility at what is now called the Bloomhaven campus. And last summer I spoke with Alex Alexandru and asked for support for this project. In fact, it was one of a couple of conversations with him, and in the end, it was some discussion by email. There was a commitment made, and he indicated in the email that it would go to, this would go through the process, and that once we finished the project, we should submit another letter requesting the funding. So that's how it occurred.
Okay. And like I said, VNA has had other things come through, quote unquote, the process. You've been in front of city council before.
Yes, we have. I'm trying to think of the last grant, probably for Indian Avenue or the Wellness Center. Yeah, probably in the administration prior to the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not responsible for the actions of the administration. However, over the last year, when normally you would be given notice, your item, we call them agenda items, is up for consideration, and you would come to either COW or City Council and possibly questions might be asked, maybe not. And then it would pass, and that's kind of the normal course. And VNA has gone through that. So when that didn't happen, were you concerned, or, you have a lot of things on your plate. Like I said, you're not responsible for the process that this went through with the administration. But did it ring somewhere that this did not happen?
No, I had received an email saying that there was going to be some action that would take place through the process, and I wasn't asked about it, and I didn't think about whether, there was something that I needed to inquire about, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Comment? So
Alderman Franco.
we have beaten this dead horse down for the process. The process apparently was not followed. We get that. What's in front of us today? Do we feel we should honor that? And do we not feel that $500,000 for affordable health care in East Aurora is appropriate? That's kind of where we're at right now. We've already hashed out everything else. So I think going forward, if we want to expedite these meetings, let's get down to what we're talking about here. Do we feel that this is worth $500,000? I would say yes. Thank you.
I can only imagine your very uncomfortable position right now, standing there before us. I have a question for you since you showed up today. Can you tell us exactly how you anticipated using this $500,000? Is it for construction? Is it for medical equipment? And the reason why I'm asking is, first of all, when we give money towards construction, anticipate it's being prevailing wage as well. It's a requirement, correct, Mr. Minnick?
Prevailing wage does come into those types of funding agreements.
Right.
And
So
constructions.
can you explain to us how that $500,000 was allocated?
It was not
And
directed
your-
to a specific line item. I'd be happy to show some of that information later.
Because I think it's important, and I don't have an issue with what any of Alderman Franco or Alderman Bugg has said, but I really do believe that you need to have everything before you to make a decision. I mean, this is a $500,000 ratification with no backup paperwork. For us to explain to the community, what's it going to? And is it properly, where is it going? It's not that we don't want to support. Everybody wants health care for their community. And we do have a great partnership with VNA. Who did the construction, for example, Mr. Minnick?
Doyle.
I believe, go ahead.
Yeah, EP Doyle.
EP Doyle, okay. Is it going towards construction? Is it going towards salary setup? I mean, where's this money going? And that's what we don't have, and that's my biggest concern right now. We don't have data in front of us. As much as I want to move forward too, maybe, and say, yes, I think it's important that we move forward. Where is it going? And
We can give you the full breakdown of the expenses.
I think it's important to have that information. It's not like, again, everybody cares about VNA, everybody cares about healthcare, especially now and everything we're hearing on the news, Medicaid, et cetera,
Yep.
cuts in Medicaid.
Yep.
But I think it's very important that we know that we're following all the rules, dotting all our I's, crossing all our T's. If this was used for construction, I'd love to know if there's a concern in regards to prevailing wage. I'd like to, it's great to say, yeah, we're going to give you $500,000. I mean, this is mind-boggling again for me as well. Somebody approved $500,000 without any budget presented to the city. It's not always about saying it's too much. Maybe it's not enough, right? As well. And trying to answer those questions for our community. And we're trying to be proper, and I believe it's important that we're proper stewards. So is there a possibility that we can get that information for the next meeting?
For the next.
The next meeting, next finance meeting? I'd like to have proper information. I want to set the standard of having all the information here before us moving forward for these items. Again, not against supporting anything, but we're going to ratify, we're going to know what we're ratifying. I think that's very important coming out of the gate here, especially with this administration. And the community knows exactly, and I think the community expects to know that we have the information before us. So if we can have some delineation of where this 500,000 is actually going to, I think that would help out tremendously, because it's not just a ratification. My concern is, at this point, is beyond a ratification, it's just a blank check. I think the community needs to know a little bit more, and I think some of my colleagues should know as well here on this committee.
Yep, we're happy to give you the information of what's been spent.
Yeah, so, I mean, and then the other question is legal here? Anybody here from legal? Mr. Patrick, I wasn't gonna let you off the hook that
Ah,
easy
well,
today from this one.
Not at your first meeting.
Yeah.
Assistant Corporation Counsel Patrick Collins.
All right, words are important, correct?
Sure.
Yeah, that are written down
Usually,
in
yeah.
particular, yeah, okay. So I'm looking at the legislation text, second page impact statement. It says, the first paragraph, first line item, towards the back end, the suffix, fulfill the letter of commitment between the city and VNA. Is that a true statement, between the city and VNA, or is this between the mayor or the chief of staff, the former chief of staff, or the former mayor and the VNA?
I would have to look at that letter and review that and get back to you on that. With having read it and the legal opinion on.
Impact statement.
The impact statement is just in the Legistar cover memo. I mean,
Yeah, second page, impact statement.
yeah, it's a statement, yeah, are you looking for a specific answer here? Or?
Yeah, I am. Is it between the city and the VNA, or, because the city is who? The city council, correct? That represents and votes on the budget and line items, and this one hasn't been approved by us. So is it proper to say city, or is it more proper to say the previous administration?
I think you're mincing words at that point. In an impact statement, the real crux of the cover memo was all down in the resolution.
Okay. I'm not an attorney, but I've learned things like Scrivener errors and whatnot.
And
over the
any
years, but-
cover memo is just basically, they're outlining the different points of what's in it, where you have the subject, the purpose, background, discussion, you know, the impact statement and the recommendation is all the preamble, I guess, or like the intro, the
Okay.
beginning of the heart of the matter is
All
what's
right.
actually authorized in the resolution that grants the
All
city
right.
the authority to do what it's doing.
All right, well, I will say that I don't believe it's a full commitment. It says fulfill the letter of commitment between the city and VNA. And this is the testimony provided before us is between Alex Alexandru and VNA. So I'd like to have a little bit more information on what that commitment is and what that $500,000 is going to. I'd like to hold it here till the next meeting, till we have that data before us. And since VNA is willing, a representative from VNA is willing to provide that in terms of what their budget is and where this money is going to, what it's being allocated towards. I understand there's many things. It's okay if it's not construction, but I'd love to know what it's going to specifically. And
Yep, we're happy to provide a breakdown of what was spent on the project.
sure,
Yep.
sure, appreciate that. So if the committee has no objection, I'm gonna like to hold this for till the next meeting. And hopefully we can make a decision what we do from there.
I got a comment. And I agree with you. As I said, VNA does excellent work. You do excellent work. And I don't think this body, current or in the past, has necessarily ever turned down any requests from VNA. So we're just looking at the process now. If in July 2024, you would put forward a request for funding for $500,000 to this body, and in a resolution, a grant for VNA, I am 99% certain it would have passed. But just the way it happened was not
It's
under
unfortunate.
the normal process
It's
that we.
unfortunate, yes.
Yes. So, I agree with Alderman Masiacos, to just see where those funds are gonna be going. And I assume that we have, at least in those two letters, we have the full letters there, but, the writer of those letters and the people who were copied, Mr. Alexandru, they did not request from VNA any type of breakdown, anything.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, what's the next step? Can I just hold it, or do we have to ask for a vote to hold?
I mean, I would recommend, you're requesting hold, do you have a consensus of the group? I think would be more of the appropriate one at this point, or if you want a motion to actually table it here, or you just want to hold it here.
I just want to table it for till the next finance meeting to collect more data,
So are you making?
so we have a more understanding of what we're ratifying.
Are you
It's
making
not
a motion to table?
I'm asking if I could just do it as chairman and hold it for another 2 weeks? Or does it have to go through a vote?
I would recommend it goes through a vote then if you're just looking to hold it. If you want to table the motion,
How was it held last time?
I was not at that meeting. I would defer to anyone else who was.
I don't even know if it came to us last meeting, is that true? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
I think the mayor's office held.
Yeah,
We
the
didn't,
mayor's
we
office
didn't,
held, yeah.
it came
They held,
in
yeah.
being held. We did not.
And if you want to make a motion to hold it, it'd be voted on by the.
I'd like to know if there's support from staff to hold it until we collect all the data as well, another 2 weeks.
Sorry, excuse me, Shannon Cameron, Chief of Staff. So this wasn't held by committee, it was held by administration, just initially, just so you know, because we wanted to dig in more to this, because the mayor didn't remember it coming through council and just wanted to see if this was part of a redevelopment agreement or what exactly happened with this. So that's why we had kind of done the research. As far as the funds have already been spent, I will say, it's fine if VNA wants to do a report, but I mean, in the end, it's sunk costs, those funds, that money has already been spent. I will say, hopefully this is an error that
Real
needs
quick,
to.
It's been spent by, VNA's already finished the project.
Yes,
They're
yeah.
looking for reimbursement now. We haven't
Yeah.
spent anything.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Spent by VNA, I mean, and this is just a reimbursement for monies already spent, and, I'm not sure how much council will glean from the details necessarily, because anything could be put in there. I'm happy, to work with them to provide that, but just letting you know that it sort of is what it is, and it's a mistake, and we've got to make sure that we have things in place where that doesn't ever happen again.
I'd still like to have more data personally. I don't know what the committee wants to do, but I'm not ready to move forward with it until we have the data. I'm not against ratification 100%, but I'd like to know what I'm ratifying. And this is just a blank check. I'm going to leave it up to the committee to see if they'll hold it, I guess, at this point till the next finance committee, so we can collect that information. So we forward it to the committee of the whole with eyes wide open and knowing exactly what's in it, especially starting out with this new administration. I'd hate to have carryovers of process and ratifying things, cart before the horse.
If you're asking, as chair at times, or not at times, as chair, you can request the members to, as our council said, consensus to hold something, and it doesn't have to go to motion. Or you can make the motion. If you make that motion, I will second it, and we can go forward. But as chair, if we have consensus to hold it, then held.
Oh, then I'll make a motion to hold. We have a second.
Second.
All right, so I made the main motion. I have a second from Alderman Bug. All those in favor of holding it for 2 more weeks to get the date on the docket?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 4-0. I appreciate that from the committee. This is the most uncomfortable position for myself as well, so you know, ma'am. My first day here as chair, first day as a committee chair here. So, like Alderman Bug said, 99% sure it wouldn't be an issue before, but I'd like to have everything, all our ducks in a row moving forward. At least over this next 2 years while I'm here. I don't know what the future has, but if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I appreciate your
problem.
understanding.
Yep.
All right. No need for a closed session.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion from Alderman
Second.
Franco, second by Alderman Bug. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned at 4:47. Thank you very much, one and all.